This is the Manufacturing Automation Podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Matt. In this podcast, we're going to discuss growing companies, automation and manufacturing,
and how we're building the lives and businesses we want to see in the world.
All right, let's roll.
Cool. Do you want to start with general feelings of the week?
I can, sure. I think my feelings for the week are bring on the miles in the next project. That's kind of where I'm at. So the team just delivered Project 2101 this week, which was the smoothest project in develop history. Like, I think I don't even know how many hours I had in the project because it was so low.
Yeah.
And customer signed off on final gate, delivered up at their facility, and it went off without a hitch. Everything's documented really well, kind of systems worked. And then coming off the trade shows, we've got more leads coming in that are on the automation partner program, and then local sales where I'm going in where they already know what they want bid. So I just have to get boots on the ground and look at the projects. So lots of miles there, and looking at the GANs, kind of following up from last week on that, is the team's ready to start another project on 7/1/25. So that's kind of I realize that's not too far away given our long sales cycles, but given the amount of leads that we'll kind of get into here that I'm seeing over the last 9 months here, a year, it's really encouraging. So what about yourself?
That's good. What was Project 2101? Was that?
So that was the net torquing project.
Okay, gotcha.
So
yep.
Rotary table, torques up to 450 foot-pounds.
And I know there was an ECO, that a change order that the customer had wanted. Did that end up happening? How was that navigated?
It did not. So I can go into that now if we want to, or we can kind of go into that in engineering.
Your call. Your call.
Sure, we can dig into it since you asked.
Okay.
It was a pretty big ask. So customer wanted torque rating increased on the machine. Everything, and it's at 450 foot-pounds on a rotary stage. It's not a small ask when you say we want to add, say, 25 or 50 foot-pounds to everything, because it wasn't engineered for that. There wasn't a factor of safety calculated for that. We didn't test for that. And so the change order came in right around like $50,000+ just to go through the process. And it was like, it was a clear no to them. And so then we deployed the machine, and the best answer is the reason we said no is it sounds like they need another machine. And so the next machine's going to have that ECO on it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that was the best answer we could have heard.
Yeah, that is a good answer.
So what about Michael? What's your week been like?
Frustrated is the word. Enough so that I'll have to listen back to this one and talk with Priscilla about like how much of this I want to cut.
Okay, understood.
A couple different things. So we were on an install this week for intraload. Mm-hmm. And there were some things that went wrong, I think, with the initial sales cycle. We had our checklist, and the first thing that happened, I think I told you about this before, was that it was, we were told it was a 2020 machine. It was a 2019.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And by the time we'd caught it, I think 2 or 3 weeks had gone by, and we were supposed to do the install in 4 weeks. And we basically talked with them and decided to engineer one from scratch, right? Which we did. We came in, I think, a week late, which I thought was amazing for like.
That's not bad.
No.
If you had to engineer something and you're still only a week late, I don't know.
And then there was a week of scheduling, so it got pushed back. I think 2-3 weeks total or something. And there's just been some, I think, minor to medium frustrations with the project in general. One thing I never really accounted for on the intraload is like the benefit, of course, of using a machine that's already there is that you kind of have all the kinematics. It's really simple to integrate. But I guess one thing I hadn't really thought through, especially on like maybe not the best taken care of machines, is that if maintenance has been neglected, if there's problems, if there's oil everywhere, that kind of becomes our problem. And there was a little bit of encountering that. The machine was very neglected. There were a lot of strip screws. One thing that we had run into is like we had redesigned this for them, and we kind of got on site, and they were frustrated that that we were delayed by this 2-3 weeks. And I was like, oh man, that's a rough start when we had custom engineered this around this machine from this initial miscommunication. And one of the other things that I thought was really good news was I presented them, hey, because we designed this around this different kinematic structure, you get a 10th pallet. And I said, hey, we're only going to charge you for the hardware on this 10th pallet. It's like $2,000, right? You get 10% more capacity. And, you know, they just went back and forth and they couldn't decide. And you know, we're like, oh, why don't you do this upgrade for free? Like, and just little things like this kind of shocked me. And, you know, the install actually went on schedule. It went really smoothly. And we had a couple other hiccups that were like, all these screws are stripped. And we just dealt with them for free, right? And we documented them. Like, I bought these like the meta glasses, and then I actually bought the newer meta glasses because they're way better. And like recorded the issues. And this happened in a couple places. One of the other places was that the machine, because you know, didn't have the latest software, which wouldn't have been possible if it was 2020. So it was another thing we didn't check. And that meant that we completed the full machine installation, and now we have to wait for Haas to get out there. And then, you know, then the kind of guy on the floor comes out and tells me, hey, my boss is really upset because now there's a second or third thing. And I'm just thinking about this, and I'm like, you know what? Like, we've gone and done a killer install on this job. Like, we re-engineered this thing. We gave you an opportunity for like a free 10th pallet, you know, essentially free, the cost of the vice and the hardware. And then, you know, just having, you know, watching the team come together and bust their ass, including me being on site for this first one, that was just a little bit demoralizing. So that was kind of the first thing that was really frustrating. Yeah.
For the customer, do you think, because I've had similar experiences, are you just getting kind of the brunt of dysfunctionality on their team? Like you're saying that the machine's
possible.
That neglected, like maybe that business just isn't.
It's not like the machine
operated.
Is terrible. It's just like,
okay.
It clearly, maintenance is not a top priority. And you know, even when we came in like to the machine, we just jogged it around to check the travels, because obviously we were designing this bespoke to this generation. We're like, okay, we're going to eat the costs of, you know, we're going to lose money on this one, but we'll then roll it out to this, you know, first and second generation of this machine. And, you know, as we jogged it around, literally like the back, like way covers just like ripped and like fell off. And, you know, then we go and get them right away. And they're like, well, what did you do to our way covers? And I'm like, oh. Like, we haven't taken anything apart. Like, clearly it wasn't us just jogging the machine. So there's little things that were frustrating like that.
Interesting. Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of understand the frustration from like anybody commissioning a machine. Like, I don't know about you, but I've been in that, you know, feeling the pressures from my customers, and it never feels good to have a machine down, and you know, you're just thinking about the cost of the machine and XYZ. But you know, I wish it would have been a more pleasant experience.
Yeah, I know the stress too when you're actually the one turning the wrenches and you're the mediator. That's where, like, if I go on site right now for like big installs, my main goal there is to, I think we've probably said this in old podcasts, is I consider it a PR initiative. I'll go in there for the week of on site of say $500,000 plus machines. And my goal there is I'm going to be taking care of emails. I'm going to take the customers out to dinner. I'm going to chat with them, talk about next machines. But then kind of there's always something that goes wrong. Like it's just inevitable. You have to be, you're waiting for the mic to drop, if you will, and then figuring out how to keep everybody calm and focused on the real results. But when you're the one wrenching, like I'm sure you were, I know you feel that so much worse because I've been there.
Yeah, and it's also like, okay, this is the first generation here. I have to make sure that there's no problems with this. I have to make sure we document all the things that we can do better on the next generation. And you know, I want to deliver a great result, even if it's, you know, like this is the first generation of the product going on that machine. So, you know, all those things kind of combined, and I think kind of hurt my mood a little bit. Also, just working longer hours with things not going perfectly, because they never do.
Oh, yeah.
And man, the other thing, I know I'm kind of venting, so I've had a week.
You're fine. That's the goal. Is I think the podcast turned into us just kind of chatting about the week, if you will, and I've actually heard a lot of good feedback on it. So no worries.
That's the good thing too, is like just having, you know, knowing what it's like, and also it's not all sunshine and rainbows running a business at all.
No,
you know, the highs are highs and the lows are low. And something else happened that just really frustrated me. You know, we have been kind of short staffed for a little bit. That was already an issue. And, you know, I just turned through, I don't know, reviewing like 100 resumes for our assembly position. And for context, this is a $24 to $28 like posted salary range position. We got tons and tons of good applicants. And we brought someone in who has been doing a killer job for the last 2 or 3 weeks, right? And basically the what I've changed our policy to is rather than negotiating pay up front, we do it 2 weeks in just to get a performance review, right? So
I think we've chatted about this. That's
Yeah.
exactly. We do a 90 days at Develop where, you're not sure about somebody. You start them low and you can always go up. And every
Right.
90 days you get the chance to talk.
So we that got pushed a week, so we're 3 weeks in, and the conversation was supposed to be like, hey, you're doing a great job, like here's your $4 an hour raise to the top of the pay range, and we actually I pushed the meeting to Monday, which was because I was stuck on this install that had gone, a day long because of the machine maintenance issues, and I get this kind of cryptic email of like, hey, I'm still evaluating the company. I've got these other offers. I have to make a decision. And by the way, I need a week off, in a week and a half. And I'm just reading this and I'm like, what the hell? Like you didn't, when this person to the team was like, hey, I'm 100% on board. I'm glad you're onboarding me. Like, I love the environment. I love the culture. And it was just such a head scratcher. Right. So, I'm like, okay, I want to retain this person. He's been doing a great job. And say, okay, let's do a Google Meet tonight. Like, and I schedule it for 7, right? And I get on the call, and the first thing I say is, hey, I'm frustrated. Like, this isn't how people in the gimbal culture operate. You don't just say I'm taking a week vacation in a week with no notice.
Do you have that in your handbook?
Yeah. There's
Okay.
a PTO request process. It just totally out of left field and just the opposite of what had been communicated so far. And then the next thing that was said just absolutely shook me. I said, I'm kind of there, the employees being super defensive. And I'm like, okay, whatever, I can understand this. And I just asked them, so, obviously this is supposed to be a compensation conversation. Like, what are you thinking? Because this has been way more this was supposed to be a good news, like, congratulations, welcome to the team, here's your raise. And he says, well, I really need to be making 6 figures. And I'm just looking like, are you kidding me? Like, you want me to 2.5x your salary on, like, when I was going to move you to the top of the pay range? I was just flabbergasted. And I'm just like, well, the position's like not worth this. I don't know if this is just like a crazy bluff or what. And I'm also like upset because, I wasn't told, oh, this is still like my evaluation. I'm still fielding other offers. If we would have had that conversation of I expect 6 figures, it'd be like, thank you, next. And
Yeah.
I can't think of all the other excellent candidates that I have, sent rejection letters to because this person did this. I'm going to see how this conversation goes on Monday, but I expect it to result in him walking out the door.
He's not bought in anyways, Michael.
Yeah, but usually I catch these things, and I think I've been beating myself up. But like this one, I just had no indicators, and it really is that business owner feeling of like you can do everything right and still lose. And yeah, and I'm frustrated. It's like, okay, we're already short staffed. I thought I had like a rock star person in this position, and then I just get this crazy nonsense out of left field, and now I got to go, really restart this process that I've already put so much time and energy into. So those are honestly, I'm just going to leave all this in because it's all real, it's all true.
I think
the
what you
thing that
said's
happened
great.
was shitty, and you have an obligation, especially in like a small business, to communicate honestly. I just don't like how a lot of it went and how rapidly changing everything seemed to be.
Yeah, I can't talk to like how that played out because I've never had that where like 3 weeks, 90 days when it's coming to that conversation be that way. I've seen that though a lot recently not recently, over the last couple of years here interviewing for team members is this weird like just ask of a lot of people and they're new graduates and you're
Right.
like you start talking compensation and you ask what their expectations are And I've seen that where they come back and they're like, I just want to make six figures. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, six figures is a big delta. Are we talking 100,000 or 999,900? This is usually me. I'm already frustrated at this point. I just want to see what their next response is because I'm at a no.
Yeah.
Because there's usually no baseline on it. It's not like based on, hey, I want to come add value to the company. And this is how I think I can add it. And this is how I can get to a compensation package. But it's just really interesting how some of the next generation is blatantly just wanting six figures. And I'm wondering where that marketing or expectations being set.
Right. Yeah.
It's because it's interesting.
Well, you can set that, people can have whatever expectations they want, but it's like, we have a published pay range. Like, there's no bait and switch from us. It's like, here's the range.
Yes.
We had this conversation up front of, you're going to be paid within this range. We'll see where it is. And then the story suddenly changes. And I know I'm frustrated, and I know me venting about it does nothing to fix the situation, which is ultimately what I have to do. But
that was going to be my question is,
Yeah.
and you answered it, is how did you lay out what the comp was? Because that's what we've gotten to is you lay out the package, and rather than just even asking what their expectations are, this is what develops willing to pay.
Yeah.
And making sure they're bought into where we're going is the big thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just like, it's the pay range that was on Indeed. I'm not going to lie to people. It's
No,
just the whole thing is, and I know I'm whining and I know I'm being immature, and the thing to do is open the Indeed listing, have a conversation with the employee, be okay if he walks out the door, and move on.
Why even wait to have the conversation? You might as well post it today.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
There's your challenge for this week. Get your Indeed posting up tonight.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it that is a little bit demoralizing when you feel like you have a win, it turns into a loss, and it's already like, hey, I really want to find this CNC apps guy, and I thought I had checked a box, and now I have one more box to check. So
I feel like it's not an uncommon story, Michael. So I wouldn't take it too personal. I mean, I can tell a similar story to this. We had a team member that we had hired on the software side years ago, and we no more than just got them trained. We had spent 6 months bringing them up. They didn't know how to program in Python. We hadn't put them on really any revenue generating projects. And no more than getting them trained, they come in the office and say, hey, I got this offer for a new job that is doing basically everything you just trained me to do, just XYZ more. And it's like, yeah, we're ratcheting up your pay accordingly was the goal, not for you to just come blindside me with this.
Yeah.
So that was really frustrating because it was somewhere between, like, I guess I don't even want to say, but it was well into the five figures of just investment into that team member that we just lost. Like, it was just profit potential lost because of what we had invested into that team member. And like, my gosh, should I have just done raises sooner? Should I have had communication? But at the end of the day, that person wasn't bought into where we were going. So I'm glad they left.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the whole thing. It's like, I guess what seemed so bizarre is like, it seemed so out of character. And that's one of those things until someone's like with you for a decent amount of time, like you never know, like how their productivity is going to stay. Are they really part of the team? Is their, head in the clouds, or do they have unreasonable expectations? I mean, that's always something that's difficult, but yeah, I guess frustrated is my feeling for the weekend. It's like, I know what I need to do. Now I just have to do it, and I have to get over my whining. Thank you, anybody who's listening to me too whine on the podcast.
Yeah, it won't change anything moving forward, whining.
Yeah.
So we've identified the problem. We're going to execute the change, and in a couple of weeks, you're going to have solved it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Do you want to move on to the next section? I've got my venting out of the way.
It's sales and marketing. We'll let you go first for this section.
So sales and marketing, on this install, the first thing, obviously, I've taken over most of the sales calls. I think our close rate is like just so good right now. And I think a lot of that is actually bad because it means our funnel is too small. And if our top a funnel was bigger and we had a lower close rate, that would mean we're having significantly more business. And I'm in the position I don't like to be in, where I don't want to take on considerably more work than we're able to execute on. And so until we're staffed up properly, which is kind of priority number one, I'm not really pushing on okay, let's build that top of funnel out as much as possible.
It's interesting because we're kind of at the opposites at this point in our business. We're continuing to hunt for more top of funnel and get the leads in because our conversion rate is lower, really for some reasons that we pushed for, which I can get into. But it is interesting how we've got this interesting divide, if you will.
Yeah, and it's, I've let the top of funnel shrink a little bit, and I've also been more selective with what clients we're serving. I think our business has been shifting more and more towards higher revenue projects. Especially with intro load. We just completed this intro load. We have to wait for the HOS update software, and then we'll do final site acceptance testing and everything. And then there's 2 more right after this.
Nice.
Between that and I don't know, the other half a dozen turnkeys that are running right now, it's hard for me to be like, I got to be pounding the pavement on sales calls because I have to get more team members in who really are on the team and rowing the boat in the same direction.
Makes sense.
One thing I have been doing is a focus on just general social media content, which I think I've been bad at. We released our first newsletter, which Priscilla did, so that one's thankfully out of my hands, and she did a great job. And then as far as marketing content, I actually I saw someone else on Instagram using these Ray-Ban Metas or Meta Stories or whatever, and I had them just sitting in a drawer. My parents had bought them for me for my birthday like 3 years ago, so they're the old ones. And I started recording with them, and I'm like, this is awesome. But they only recorded for 60 seconds, which was like super frustrating. So you can just hit the button, you're recording. Amazing for SOPs, Instagram stories, that kind of thing. But they're pretty grainy. So then I went and bought like an Insta360 camera, which clips on the hat, which the quality is worse. There's more friction. Well, the quality of the recording is better, but the audio is worse. And where I landed is like, okay, this is a SOP camera where I put on the hat. I can record internal SOPs for as long as I want. And then I bought the other Meta glasses, the new ones, which are kind of like just awesome for social content or quick SOPs. So like these guys.
Yeah, we had a pair of those for a while. We tested out. I never thought of using it for social though.
Were they the old ones or the new ones?
The new ones. We had them like 45 days ago.
Okay.
It was a test to see if we could ID people during trade shows. It doesn't work for that because we see a lot of the same people, and it if I haven't had like one of those conversations with a person to like tie it to like, all right, they're really into hunting, they're really into cars, like I have a story that I can tie to that person, I really struggle to remember names. So I'm like, can we get these glasses to recognize people that I've already talked to for me? It didn't work.
Yeah, I feel like it'd make it awkward too, of like, oh, it's got a little light on, you're being recorded. At least for people who knew what it was. But the Insta360 is awesome. I mean, it's literally just like a couple clicks and you put on the hat and it's not too bad. But I kind of landed on like, that's amazing for SOPs because unlimited length, and like it's good quality. I can put it in horizontal, but it's really hard to beat. There's just the little clear glasses for, you wear them around, you hit the button, and it's just like so frictionless. So I've been really excited about that before. When I came in at 1, when we were originally going to do the podcast.
Yeah, my fault.
Well, I just spent an hour and I recorded like 40 videos.
Oh, nice.
And
how are you going to edit all that? You need AI then to filter all this stuff for you.
That's the thing, is we just don't. Like we'll take the good ones or the decent ones, we'll caption them automatically, AI thing. It fixes the color filtering, we crop it. Some of them go as a reel and on LinkedIn, and then a large portion of them just become kind of unfiltered Instagram stories.
Okay.
So
nice.
There's a good process there, and Priscilla handles that, and it's pretty quick. But yeah, we definitely have more of a shotgun approach to content marketing than you guys do.
Yeah, I'd like some of that. I ran into a challenge like this when I was shooting a story just the other day. I'm shooting the truck backing in and I pan the shot, and then I'm like, I have to delete that entire section of the shot because I just panned across a bunch of IP restricted stuff. And it's just like, we've got all these IP landmines in our facility where it's like, I have to be so cognizant of what I'm shooting sometimes because it's like, oh, I just caught something in the back 20% of this shot and now it's all garbage.
Yep. You can blur it too. I mean, there are options.
I've found just reshooting, it's quicker than trying to edit it. It's like, shoot, and then redo it.
Yeah. Yeah, and we don't, for that reason, record like any information on customer turnkeys, and that's somewhere I think our marketing has really failed. And I think I've been talking about this, like turnkeys are such a huge portion of our business, and I just have failed to really market them effectively. The web page sucks. There's no real YouTube content on it or like long format videos. And I need to fix that, even if it means taking the time to go make a dummy turnkey of a fake part, right?
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of value too. That kind of comes to our service side of our business, or the machine building, and that's what we did all last 12 months was rebuilding that side of our website, and it's starting to bear fruit, which I'm excited to talk about.
Yeah. That's what's hard though. You have an install that's difficult, and then you have a personnel problem, and then when you're in that like it rains it pours situation, you want to do the things that are like these little improvements, and then you're suddenly treading water, which I know it'll turn around because it always does, but it's just been a frustrating couple of weeks.
I've found though, even when you're having those frustrating weeks, you have to just set aside X number of hours, no matter what, you're going to be doing some form of continuous improvement or CI, because there's always an excuse. Like there's always an excuse not to work out. There's always an excuse not to wash your cars. It's you can always come up with one. So it's like, all right, how do you just have the discipline that, all right, 2 to 4 hours a week, even if it's just 1 to 2, it's just something that you set aside. And those are your CIs. I've kind of turned into that's my Friday afternoon is really my goal is to focus on CIs, because we have in the morning all of our project team meetings updates, and then afternoons can be like my cleanup and organization stuff or ways to improve.
Well, ironically, us, being short-staffed has led to me kind of working in the business, which I think is like unintentionally and ironically led to some of them like the most continuous improvement and the biggest overhaul of divisions, because I'm like, no, this is too inefficient. This is unacceptable. And obviously I have the ability to just be like, okay, we're going to spend 10 grand and we're just going to fix it. Right. Like
exactly.
Today. In a way that I feel, I'm pretty lenient with allowing my staff to make decisions to purchase things, within a certain threshold, but there's definitely not, I think, the willingness from our employees to be like, oh yeah, I want to spend $5,000 to do this, this, and this all on, one day.
Give them a budget. Because I've found that's really liberating. We're like, I never used to do budgets, and I've had team members now come up to me and be like, hey, even though the budget might not have been what I wanted for the year or what I thought, just because you gave that to me or defined what the rules of this goals were for the year, it made it really easy for me to make decisions on what the priorities that you've clearly stated for the year. But then like, we also have just a 2x2 rule. It's simple. If it's under $200, it takes less than 2 hours. I don't even want to hear about it. Just execute it. Like just saying those things. Maybe it's like we've been talking about. Maybe it needs to go to a 5x5 by now. But like maybe you said 2,000 there. Maybe the team member gets $2,000 in a day. But they'll start stacking up in a hurry if you get that freedom.
Yeah,
because we used to have kind of like an open policy and like just get these things done. And it's like, holy crap, where'd all these hours go? It's like, oh, I made all these things really or more efficient. It's like, well, that was 3 weeks worth of work.
Right.
That's for billable.
Yeah, and that's part of my challenge too. Is like I see something there and I just want to fix it and be done with it. And I'm very prone to just like snap my fingers. I'm going to overhaul something when maybe that's not necessarily what I should be doing. I've always been bad at doing things, gradually and calmly. And
yeah, I think that's a little bit of the entrepreneur
right
there is the lack there of patience and just like, why can't this be done now?
Mm-hmm. Well, rolling back into just sales and marketing, I know you have a lot of automate leads and you want to get a project going by July. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I mean, for the sales and marketing, the website was really our big thing. So like all of our service pages finally went live for the Automate show. That's all been laid out. We're doing some revisions. So there's still some aesthetics and the website is still slow, Michael, because we have some stuff in staging that's coming out in the next 2 weeks here. I cannot wait till it's out of staging. This frustrates me so much. But then it's rolling into our marketing is going to be product focused, because we're starting to see where the leads from our shows and then the website are supporting it. So I went back and looked because I'm like, man, there are so many leads and bids that we're managing right now. Just since the beginning of the year, we've added 43 projects in evaluation to our pipeline. So that means that they're getting bidded, getting scoped, or have been bidded since January.
Yep.
That is like record number that I've ever seen. We set the goal at bidding 52 projects for the entire year. So we haven't bid all 43 of those. We're trending a little bit behind of the 52 goal for the year, but that's telling me that if we stack this Pack Expo in Vegas show in, we should have no problem getting that number of bids. But my pain then is turning into like, I'm struggling to give the amount of service that I think these leads deserve. So it's like, all right, now I have some SOPs and processes that need to be refined. And that's kind of laying out my Q3 objective is how do I finalize to what's good enough in the, oh gosh, now I'm blanking on his book, Dan Martell.
Oh yeah.
80%, like what's good enough, Matt, so we can hire a salesperson and get a lot of this workload off of me on these new leads that are coming in.
Yeah.
So that's kind of turning into my focus for the sales and marketing in Q3 is really honing in the SOP is so we can bring somebody else in.
Yeah, and you're worried about like the service side mostly on the sales and lead and conversion process, right? Not the actual machine building process.
Correct. It's just it's not necessarily like quality of it. It's just the amount of time like I have. Like these customers, we're still giving them what I think is right for quality by utilizing the rest of the team, but it's just sometimes things take a little bit longer where customers want fast responses on this stuff. And that's always been our goal at Develop is we're good and fast. We're not always the cheapest. And so to stick to that, we have to be good and fast throughout everything we do.
Yep. Yeah, that's the challenge is always speed, especially on the sales side, and trying to convert and make it as low friction as possible. And on these complex projects, that's always been the balance of like, how much information do you get? Because the more, in the scoping process, I've found, at least for us, and to be fair, our projects are a lot less overarching. But, there's this turning point where thoroughness, like continuing to be more and more detailed, adds more and more friction to the point that you're less likely to close. And that's always a tough balance to walk.
Yeah, it definitely is, because I know we've probably overcorrected a little bit on the engineering side because we've just seen the pains you get if you can close them quickly if you keep it, like you said, very vague, if you will. But then the pain comes later in the project, and that's usually towards like gate 3, gate 4, so factory acceptance and SAT. And then that's just like, this isn't the time to be having the conversations about changing these. So we've really pushed back to like, all right, let's make sure these are scoped correctly. But I think we've made it so we're at the beginning of our sales cycle, not as refined, if that makes sense. Where we used to put a really formal proposal in. I'm sending out a proposal here tomorrow that still has notes in it. It still has things like, hey, need this from XYZ customer. Develop has to complete this. We're still waiting on supplier bids for this. But just so they can start putting their notes on it, they requested it, and I've started doing that for other ones. And it's like, now there's buy-in is what I'm seeing, is they're building this proposal with us.
Yep. Yeah, that's one thing I started doing too, is I'm very aggressive with quoting. And, it's like, hey, subject to change depending on part complexity. Obviously subject to change depending on, what the machine is. But just to get a number out in the air, typically just recording a Loom video, and, a Loom video and a quote. And, as long as they're on the same page with you that, hey, this might change if you give me a part that's totally different than what you described in some, crazy multi-op nonsense. As long as generally what we've talked about is the case, here's your quote, here's the proposal.
Ours is the complexity of some of those variables. The other one is just we procure so many things. So like I got one right now where it's going to require a large amount of conveyance in a way that we don't do commonly. And then it requires pallet magazines or dispensers, whatever you want to call them, that we haven't quoted out in the last 6 months here. And so it's like, all right, this is a budgetary number. I know this supplier takes forever on a bid, but they're the best one on the market and they deliver on time. Right. It's like, we're just going to use them, but to maintain momentum on your project, we're just going to use the old number and assume this is going to change.
Yep. One thing that's kind of funny is, I don't know if you remember, a while ago I was whining that we were dealing with some very big corporate client, right? And their purchasing department, kept trying to treat us as like a full service integrator on like a $500,000 project, and keep trying to put all these like little tiny milestones, and we were a little bit annoyed because it's like, this is a much smaller scope project than that. But anyway, something positive came out of it, which was they wanted to pay 30% deposit and then 30% when we had procured all of the items, which we make. So like, and then, 25% when we had demonstrated it as operational, and then 15 on-site acceptance testing.
Yeah, that's a good structure right there.
Yeah, and we, on all of our larger projects, have actually rolled that out because it turns out, when you are the OEM, you already have procured everything. So it's like 30% here. It gives us a milestone to collect that 30% payment. And, from there, sometimes it gets delayed a week, which, we are able to, with that milestone basis, communicate very early on, hey, this is delayed a week because we received this payment late. And it has the upside for us of, we're collecting 60% now instead of 50% upfront. And it seems to make our close rate go up even more. So that's one of those places where something I didn't like initially has actually, I think, turned into a positive change.
It's a very similar structure that we've kind of landed on. We have a couple more in there depending upon how factory acceptance, site acceptance,
Yep.
and then depending upon kickoff dates. So we've started doing some front end structures depending upon risk of the project and how we're doing their timeline of kickoff. So it can be a lower dollar upfront, but then as soon as their project actually starts, then they pay the kind of the remainder of that upfront, if you will, because for the longest time we were like, all right, we're not sure when your project can start. All we can do is get you in the queue. Like that's been the way it's been developed for the last 4 years. And so this like, hey, we need a project in 1 to 3 months would be like ideal for us is kind of an interesting situation to have.
Yeah. And that's where you got to be careful too, because I have really found on, as we've been doing more and more of these projects, like we're buying into the shop and the company or the factory who is the customer. And, I have had projects where I thought we could have done better, and the customer has been over the moon and incredibly gracious and very easy to work with. I've had customers who have their own apps guys, and they skip all the training and they blast through it. And then we've also had customers who have, maybe the apps engineer. We have one, the apps engineer churned, who was supposed to do the implementation. And, now we have some other point of contact who just doesn't understand CNC machining, who is like, in this case is telling us, hey, this project doesn't work. And they've used 15 minutes out of their 3 hours of support on the project, and they've attended 0 of the training sessions. And it's like, how do I help you when...
What do you mean? I'm confused about what do you mean you need to be careful about that? And then we went down
No, not necessarily careful, but, on these bigger projects, I found like the success of the customer, like the customer has to want to succeed.
Oh, yeah.
And in some of these corporate, like larger corporate customers we've started to deal with, I've seen instances where that wasn't the case. And, for whatever reason, whether they're a union shop or they don't want to go down this route, or if they just, don't want to automate, there have been 1 or 2 instances across 20 projects where, for whatever reason, they just skip the training and then, flail their hands and say, oh, this doesn't work, when we have, tested and proved and documented it all.
Yeah, we've seen some of that pain, and I've kind of just come to the conclusion that those people want to still do a good job, because after talking to them and learning more about some of the instances that I'm thinking of, they're just spread so thin.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it depends.
At least that's been my experience, is like some of these people are they just don't have the time to execute the way they wish they could. And so that's like, all right, our processes are now baked around. It's a do it for you. If you're working with develop, it's why we stand behind our single source guarantee. We kind of want that white glove to white glove, and you need to worry about hitting the button once we kind of land this thing is the vision for us. And that's the reason we've, over the last several years, moved towards that, which means, yeah, our costs go up accordingly, but then the clients that buy into that process are happier on the backside because we just budgeted to handle it every single project that way.
Yep. Yeah, that's just one thing. I'm just getting more selective with the clients we deal with, and I'm seeing that they're easy to work with. They're more understanding when things are bespoke, or if there's a challenge with their machine, they just fix it and don't point fingers. I guess that's also the headspace I'm in. I got to work this week to try to turn that quality of my headspace around, because I know I've been just generally a lot more negative this week than I generally tend to be.
Yeah, what you need to go younger, you need to work out. I forget how that theme is of what you need to do, but yeah. sleep or whatever.
Recency bias, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, that's really it for sales and marketing for me. We've got a lot of good things happening. Just, I know I keep saying this, we need to close one of these deals. The team's very wanting to get one of these deals under our belt. I'm confident one of these is going to go. I'm kind of on the side like, what if they all go?
Right, yeah. Well, and we kind of had that situation too, and then with the personnel issues on top of it, and now I'm like, like let's slow down on sales and marketing. And it's the ups and downs of running a business. You always have one
yeah.
issue arise when another one falls away.
For sure.
Yeah.
Software and R&D?
R&D, not much this week.
Okay.
Just lots of tweaks and improvements to things I think we can do to improve the installation process on the UMC Gen 1 and 2 intraload. And they're really not anything that would affect the customer, but it just makes it go on the machine on the install faster.
Okay.
Oh, we're coming out with a new GIMVAC still. I know I've been talking about that forever, but we got 15 parts in from a domestic supplier. Long story short, we rejected them all, which was frustrating.
I am sure.
But they're going to get reworked by the original supplier. But that's always a little bit frustrating when you're trying to take the work off of your back, and then you spend triple the cost, and then we're filling stuff on QC. But generally that's just going to delay the rollout of that new product by a couple of weeks, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. R&D from your end, more HMI stuff, or
a little bit on the HMI, a little bit on software, and a little bit on a conveyor project that we're working on. So we have this ever since, maybe I haven't shared this on the pod yet, but a mission that the team was kind of tasked with, or has been tasked with over the last 12 months, is the goal. I don't think we're going to even hit it by the end of this year, but where we're going is we want to be able to build pretty much any custom machine that is right for development under 6 months.
Yep.
So that means we design it, we build it, it's integrated in sub 6 months. And I mean like up to $2 million machines at kind of our current track record of where we're aiming for. And then ideally zoom out 5 years and we can do $10, $15 million machines in that timeline. But this has been like the main mission around that. So the things that have come up is, all right, we've got a supplier on skewed conveyors, and you can't get skewed conveyors in like under 10 to 12 weeks. Doesn't matter who you buy them
That's
from.
what I was going to bring up, is how do you execute on that with the procurement issues?
Yep. So it comes down to is you have to get payments up front on the things that you've scoped out critically and you have to need. So for instance, FANUC robots ship really quickly, but some instances it might be controllers or vision or something that you need to, as soon as you get the check, you're buying those things. That's going to be driving your timelines. But for us, one of those things that we just never could drive down is skewed conveyors. And the cost, in our opinion, is still higher, and we need one for the MRS. So we're building our own skewed conveyors now that we just did our initial design review on that this week. Hopefully be ordering prototypes here in the next 2 weeks here and building it on the MRS so we can have that for PAC in Vegas. And then the other one is just software architecture. Like the team's gotten really good at getting stuff through on mechanical side, revisions to manufacturing. Our assembly pace is incredibly fast. Like a machine can get assembled in like weeks, no matter what the complexity at this point. But then we get hung up in the software architecture testing in the back and forth. So the software team's been going through and building what they're calling like their skeleton template. So we can build that faster, and then the back end can change stuff on the front end, like for pop-ups, testing, naming conventions, just much faster. So we can reduce that part of our timeline that currently is driving a lot of it, is that software architecture / testing at the end.
The one thing I'm kind of curious with that, like blitz scaling approach of like, okay, we're going to knock out a $2 million machine in 6 months, right? Are you any bit concerned about like what the cash flow implications of that might be?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to structure that into the payment terms.
I'm not so much concerned with like the procurement cost. What I would worried about with that is, they're without the ability to like internally compress or extend the timeline, like with some leniency, that to have the staff and the infrastructure to be able to build multiple of these in situ.
Oh, I see.
Then suddenly you've completed 3 of them, and by not being able to spread out that timeline, you have a bunch of staff doing nothing.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. Well, that's the goal to get to that. We're really testing it on the smaller machines right now.
Gotcha.
So like, all right, if we're doing an MRS, we should be able to turn those in like 45 to 60 days is really how quick those should be able to turn out. And then the projects like 2101, those are the ones where it's like, all right, let's start building these SOPs and tests because those are 300,000 to $500,000. We can cash flow those things as they pivot.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we have a $2 million machine, I'm not trying to do that in 6 months in the next year or two probably. But that's where we're aiming to be is what that's a really good question because that is a serious problem if we were trying to do that.
Yeah. And I still am going to push back on that, like, because you really pushed me to say like, what if your lead times were just longer? Right. And it's given us a lot of that flexibility. It's let us plan and even out cash flow. It's let us, even as we've been short staffed, not do the thing where we're in a hurry to hire just a body who can serve the position at an okay ability, and instead to, as needed, rely on outside vendors and contractors. I just want to caution you to maybe think about going the other way. I think it makes a ton of sense on that sub $500,000 machine. But just to think about a little bit more on those higher end projects.
Yeah, you're saying forever?
Well, I think there's other questions too of like, if the market is delivering these machines, just generally, your competitors on a 1-year timeline, a 2-year timeline, there's questions like, does it improve your close rate? Does it improve your customer satisfaction rate? Are they just going to vendors 2 years in advance because they know there's a 2-year timeline? In some cases I found like doing things too fast or in a non-standard way has actually made it harder for someone in purchasing to rubber stamp it.
Yeah, maybe it's that's a good question. You got me thinking because there's several reasons that we've been pushing for that. There's some that it's close rate. It definitely will help us close more deals in instances. For like the larger CapEx projects, let's say the $2 million, there's typically a higher engineering risk. So I agree that we're not trying to compress those, especially not at our current size. What happens though is the projects that should be copy paste, let's say like a 2101 project or nut torquing project, the longer a machine is on our floor, the profit goes down.
Oh yeah.
There's a direct correlation, and like there has been like there's a weird sweet spot. We have yet to hone in on it, but building a machine of that scale in 12 months is too long. We delivered that one in 11. I think the goal for the team should be for that next one, something similar to that, should be 6 to 9 months. And I want to see what the profitability goes for. But I think we're going to see profit climb up. And I think the 6 to somewhere that range is where it's going to cap out. So we should be turning those projects out faster. Our profit will be higher. And in all reality, our team should have more idle time on that. And then what we'll be seeing, instead of running more projects in parallel, I'd rather have more projects running faster in series.
Yeah.
Because there's more
They're
focus.
easier to manage. Yeah.
Well, and its focus is it's not even just the management side, it's the headspace of team members. Is if you have an electrical engineer or software engineer and they're trying to keep all 4 of these projects or 3 of these projects, because I've seen this, and they're all running in parallel, there's just a degradation curve that happens exponentially on that. So that's been part of it. Is I'd like to see more projects running in series. So our wait time might actually go up for projects because, hey, our build now, maybe we get it down to 4 months. And then now all of a sudden you're just running in the line of it. And then we'll start building teams is what I could see in the future, where it's like, all right, we have teams of 4 or something, whatever they are. And then they run projects in series together.
Yeah. I'm curious, like for the Nutrunner project, 2101, what was the beginning to end, time frame there?
So we bid that project out with a 12-month lead time. We delivered it 30 days early, so 11 months.
Yeah.
So that was a huge win for the team to see
one early,
a 1 month early delivery with a happy customer. And in all reality, had we not had to pull resources from that project to get other stuff back on track for other projects, make sure those hit timelines, we probably could have delivered that sooner. So that was like one of those where, all right, we had the bandwidth to push this project because the contract says we can, to make sure that all of our projects stay on track. So there is like, to your side of the conversation too, is make sure to not give the expectation of the customer that you can do that, because if you don't have that flexibility, then really the team gets compressed.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you on the, because we have that challenge right now too of like, okay, we have two intro loads to build and 6 or 8 turnkeys or something. Like I can't even tell you the, the every single turnkey off the top of my head, and we have some of them partially handled by this contractor, and there's definitely challenges of trying to manage that many projects and make them go smoothly.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah. But part of the benefit too, when you do have that timeline flexibility is, just in terms of actually running the business, it is easier to stage your cash flow, and to kind of prioritize projects, based on milestones to hit your financial numbers for the month. But
That's
that's also like, how do you want to be running the business? Based on the numbers or based on, outcomes. That's a philosophical
personally,
thing.
I want to be running the business based on what's the most efficient way to get everything in our pipeline done.
Yeah.
I don't like having, like, we had to pull people off that one project to make sure we hit our dates. It wasn't necessarily the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was triggered events for payment and keeping that customer satisfied, that it was just like, that's what we chose to do as a team, to make sure A, that customer's happy, and then B, make sure we get those payments on time because we forecasted those.
Yeah. 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 That's all stuff to think about.
Yeah, for sure. This is a good conversation. I hope listeners are enjoying this one.
Yeah, customer satisfaction is just that's just a tough one, and how far above and beyond, and how many concessions do you make, even when it's and I think the machine shops, just manufacturing industry in general, has this issue of you get a CO, and there's always this weird back and forth of how much is the vendor going to charge, and as the vendor, how much are we going to charge? Can we even do this? How does this alter the timeline? And it's very tough in our industry to keep everyone happy, and also just dealing with the larger clients too. You have to kind of keep in mind, like, purchasing loves to play like mental games with large corporations to try to get the best outcome, right?
Yeah, and that's always been like my fault of a lot of these processes, is it's like I really want happy customers, and so then sometime I go to like the detriment of myself for my time or even the team's time, and it's like, that was fine when we were small and growing, but it's like there was a point where this is what both parties agreed to, and because XYZ happened, we just need to have a tough conversation.
Yep.
And it's like, I think it's just because I believe so much in our processes and our team now, that I have no problem where it's like, I know we executed these things correctly. I believe in my team on these things. And we just need to talk about stuff. And it's also, I'm removed from projects more. So I think that's where I'm going with you. You need to see that too, or like try and get further from the projects, so you can just do the relations with the customer and mediate that, because they'll see it the same way too, as long as you just state the facts.
Right.
Kindly.
Sometimes, and I've really started to kind of edit how I handle these things based on or through the filter of who am I talking to, because like that conversation is going to be different with a procurement agent or a buyer than it is with the manufacturing guy on the floor or the shop foreman or the president of the company. And they all care about different things. There's very broad differentials in the level of reasonableness and maybe the tactics.
Yeah, they're just different personas. Yeah, that's
100%.
it.
And I think that's one thing I'm working on getting better at, is like it's getting easier for me to kind of hold a line with maybe someone in management or about a procurement manager. But I definitely have when there's someone on the shop floor who is running the thing, or understands the technicalities of what's happening. I think I still have that bias of bending over backwards too much to make them happy, even outside of scope.
Yeah. I wish I knew how to help with that.
Yeah.
Other than kind of, I think get yourself further detached from it and see the pains, because like I can use an example that happened in the last week here. We had a project where a customer came in to watch. Maybe I talked about this last week in the pod. Mm-hmm. They came in to watch the kind of a proof of concept, was kind of an unplanned tour, and everything went perfect, like absolutely flawless. They get to the end of it and they're like, oh, we want those boxes facing this way, not that way, on the palletization configuration. And just like, the team's very like they come to me and they're like, Matt, what do we do about this? And it's like, they're like, this is going to be 3 weeks worth of work probably.
Right.
It's like, all right, let's talk about this. Let's figure it out. We went back and forth, kind of had some conversations with the customer. It's vaguely like in some images that we shared back and forth in the statement of work, but
Right.
not really clear. But they're a really good customer.
Mm-hmm.
They've done a lot of really good things for us. Good conversations. Like, we're just going to eat this. It
Yep.
sucks. We in all reality, why does it take us 3 weeks is part of the question too, to make a change on the way our pallets configuration. It's our software isn't easy enough to change
Right.
there. And we know we're going to have this request in the future on the MRS and other ecosystems. It's like, all right, we're being forced to do this in an accelerated timeline. We're going to get it done, and we're going to keep this customer happy.
Yep.
It's like,
Well, that's what I was
I don't
talking to. I think you were a little bit confused earlier when I was talking about like buying into the customer, right? And like I think we both really focus on doing a good job at the end of the day, right?
yeah, that's how you get repeat customers.
No, I know, but there are some people who just like can't be pleased, right? And that's the kind of thing I try to not hesitate to do for a good or a great customer. But there's also, I think, every once in a while one slips through the cracks of our screening process, right? And for us, like what I've seen is like, I swear every customer who's unreasonable, like they don't fill out the turnkey checklist, they don't do the trainings, like like XYZ, and it can just be like impossible. And that's what I've been working on is first off not selling to those customers, right? Having the trust with the apps engineers and the people actually on the floor implementing it, and then also knowing like when you have the good customer and you have the opportunity, like you do the thing and go above and beyond, and that's the way I'm trying to toe the line, but I think I'm still. Yeah.
I've got an interesting doozy for you on that one, because something that I've seen happen for develop over the last couple of years on those projects is we sold the machine to what I would classify as a really good customer.
Mm-hmm.
They represented their company well. They were really good to work with. And then they left the organization.
Oh yeah, I've seen this. Yeah.
We had multiple projects back to back. That was some serious pain in our learning curve as a team. And then dealing with mission and objective shifts, because now our point of contact with the customer has changed. They have different goals for this machine. It's like, I have to now resell this machine as is.
Yeah.
Like and then there's no pleasing. I have yet to figure out how to keep that person happy in that point, because now they're like, this isn't my thing.
Yep. I've had to
If
go.
you have any,
Oof.
go ahead.
Well, I've had to go the other way too. We had one like, and I kind of like I do fixate on the projects that like they're not happy with, and it's always the same thing. It's like they don't do the training, they didn't go through the PowerPoint, like they're HubSpot things. I can see that they didn't click on them, right? It's always the same stuff. And I don't know, it's only happened 3 or 4 times, and out of 70 turnkeys. But we had one that was very similar to this other one I'm still kind of dealing with, where the apps engineer has done 0 of the training. But there was one that, one purchasing person who was great to work with, somewhat technical, bought into the project, sent the PO, and then we were handed to an apps engineer who just was like horribly underqualified, didn't understand G code, didn't know how to tram a device, was a complete nightmare, continually tried to blame us. We would have to like go, and it got to the point where we like basically had to, they were like trying to use the ROI guarantee. I'm like, you have to do the training first, right? And what ended up happening is that person actually got fired. And then we got another apps engineer. And then the project, they did one training, they got to implement it, and they were happy. And so, and
I don't have that story, but that sounds incredible.
And like that's the thing is, you just can't control some of these things. And
No.
and that's, even like the staff issue I talked about earlier. It's like, what was I going to do? Like, how would I have known or foreseen this?
That's Black Swan.
Yeah.
Nicholas Taleb. You can't predict it. You can only play it.
Yeah. So I wish I had a better answer there. That sucks, Matt. Like,
Yeah, those are long past. I've licked my wounds, let's say, from those.
It's not like an ongoing issue.
No, I think it's come down to is on that like initial vetting of customers is like, what's their role? How long have they been there? Is there a good tenure? Have they been in that one for a while? Like the one customer that I've talked to, it's they're part of the family, if you will, in a very large corporation,
Right.
and they're a director in a position. And it's like, they're clearly not going anywhere. They're incredibly reasonable to work for.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to bend over backwards
Yeah.
when I know we're going to be building you 10 machines over the next several years, as long as develop executes.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, so,
Yeah. And there's whole things of like, the bad customers are so far and few in between now. Like, you fixate on those issues and you don't think about all the ones that went smoothly and did, one or two of the training sessions
Exactly.
and are just happy running parts. And I think about the bad ones, and at least we're in the position now where it's like, if they come to us and want to do another one, it's like, let's think about whether this is really a good fit the next time around.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, we're running out of time here. We've still got company-wide updates and improvements as our last bullet of the week here. So, want to cruise into that?
Sure. Do you want me to go first?
Sure, if you want to.
Well, I have still just been kind of tearing through the shop, making a little bit of chaos. We upgraded a 3D printer. I've just been buying tons and tons of Amazon stuff.
What'd you update to for a printer?
We bought a Bamboo H2D. So now our 3D printer fleet has 2 X1 carbons. It has 2 P1Ss, an H2D, and then 3 Markforged machines.
We got rid of all of our Mark
Oh,
IV.
and an SLS machine.
I'm looking at getting another, or the team is getting a Bamboo. We haven't got one yet. Been listening.
So you
to
used to have
that.
Markforged and got rid of them?
Yeah. We wore them out.
Oh, yeah.
They just turned, like, there's a point where if I see people, like we had one of the large cheaties, if I see people playing with them too many times,
absolutely.
I don't ask questions.
You
It
just
goes
buy
on
another one.
Facebook
Yep.
Marketplace.
Yep.
And so that's what happened to them. I'm like, all right, I saw too many tinkerings when I walked upstairs on these things. They're gone.
Yeah, and yeah, that's like we have 3 of the Raise 3D Pro 3s, and it's like those. If anyone wants to buy some cheap Pro 3s,
You just need them gone. Otherwise, people try and get them to work, and you spend $500 trying to fix a $200
I know.
thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, those are $3,000 machines, but they just been outclassed now. Like
Oh,
we still use the Markforges for like really nice prints. But the Bamboos for filament that cost 10% as much, print them in a third of the time with 70-80% of the quality. It's like such an easy, whenever it can be there, it is there.
sorry. I should have said Flash Forge. You have Mark.
Oh, okay.
There
yeah.
is a big delta.
Yeah, there's the Markforged materials are like $300 a kilogram, right? So
Yeah, that we had the Flash. So that was my
Yeah.
misspeaking.
So I think we have like 20 3D printers, and we have like
Holy crap.
7 of them we need to get rid of. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, not all of those. I think there's like 9 that are like that actually run production. But yeah, we print grippers and we print custom fingers and all kinds of little stuff like that.
Okay.
But we've been continuing to overhaul the assembly department, make improvements there, make better SOPs. I've been totally tearing through the CNC machining department. It's like the CNC machining stuff, like stuff will come up and I'll have to run a machine, which I don't like. But the benefit of that has been like, if I'm going to be on the machine, I'm going to standardize the tooling. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make sure that the cam workstation there and like stuff is just moving. So that's been great. And I'm continuing to push the initiative of getting everything into the one space. I've kind of come to terms with like, I need to sell the gantry mill. Like, let's get it listed.
Isn't it listed? You already went down it, I thought, right?
Yeah, I already like kind of came to terms with like, okay, it's depreciated more than I am happy about, but I still need to like actually clean it up, take the pictures, send it to the brokers. But
Understood.
I have like a long-term game plan of getting everything efficient.
Okay. I like it.
What about you?
Some of what we talked about last week, I've started trickling in. It's not done, but laying out kind of that flex Gantt for sales, because it's always been, we know we need the hours, we just never really budgeted for them correctly. So we're building that into Gantt. But what the focus was, basically since Automate and all of last week, was getting all of our other CI R&D tasks. So we have the HMI stuff we're doing, we have the MRS stuff that we're doing, the conveyor stuff that's part of that MRS. And then like the A3 getting certified on safety for robotics deployment. And as I was digging into those Gants with the team, we were far too optimistic on what we could execute those while still keeping our other projects on time. And it was also over allocating per our budget for the year as I dug into it a little bit further. So it was, let's level these Gants out, put a less hours towards them, but make sure that we can execute to them. So it's like, all right, A3 we were thinking was going to be done this year. It's going to be done Q1 next year, which it's fine, but I know our team can achieve it based on those dates. So that's been a big portion of it. Next week's going to be getting all the lingering miscellaneous stuff that I need for the marketing and sales booked. But it's really just showing how the utilization of engineering is. So as we get these other projects, try and hit those 6-month timelines, we can Gantt those very well.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
But it's just these weird
Timing,
little details
planning,
now. I think some of the pain's just been like team size, obviously, which that's not a pain. It's like there's just more stuff running in parallel, obviously. And then it's just trying to get a software to manage it. Like we're using the one plan software and project, but it's cumbersome to get everything linked and working in there the way you want, as we've talked about.
So many companies, even in our scale, end up building their own, and it's a dangerous path to go down. And we've done custom, like where I wrote the software at one point. We used Google App Sheets. We moved to Notion. We've had like 4 or 5 different ones, and
it's funny you say that because I've had the request from multiple teams. I've got one team member just like, Matt, I want to do this so bad. And I'm like, we don't have the budget this year. Like I want to do it too. And it's like, he's like, I'll write it on my, I'm like, you don't need to write this on your own time. We're going to give you the budget. We just need to do this at the right time. But yeah, I think that's where our team's headspace is looking, is it's like, all right, we're going to use Microsoft Project to build the bulk of these, but it's like, why can't something give you good, simple reports in a Power BI dashboard that takes time tracking?
You know why? Because they can charge more for it, and then they do. People charge what the market will bear, and that's the problem with these ERP softwares.
Yeah, you're right. You end up into a full-blown ERP, and the issue is we don't need a full-blown ERP. I want to see week by week and then month by month overlaying resources, forecasted out, and then build Gantts across multiple projects in that fashion. And the granularity sucks. Yeah. Like I feel like printing off the Gantts back in the day and taping them all to a whiteboard in a line and then highlighting people like I used to do. Like it was so much more. Well, that's what we went
back to, right? Like, and and part of that was that like we're short staffed, so it's easier to manage fewer people there. But at the same time, like our system got so bloated and complex that we just did the reset. But I think like if we went and rebuilt our Notion systems, which is in the plans once we've caught up, I think we would be happy again with our project management system.
Yeah, I think ours has just been so many projects in parallel, and now we're getting cleaned up that it's like we're trying to get into the nitty gritty little details. So it's like, all right, nothing slips by a week. Like we want to see, like days are fine, but week slips compound really quickly. So that's the granularity we're really digging into.
Gantt charts are hard. Project management software is a nightmare, and like it's and none of it's really built for a company our size. It's like you either have a very simple tool you have to build a lot of stuff into, or these very complex, expensive tools that want to carry every single use case and want to charge you $20,000 for implementation.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason I don't want to build one internally, because knowing Matt, is I'm going to want to try and sell the damn thing.
Yeah. That's that's one of those things I've been honestly shocked at how much better I've gotten about. Like I don't have these like crazy wacky business plans every time I have an idea anymore. I'm just like, nah, that seems like a lot of work. Oh. It's hard enough to run the one business. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. So we got accountability up next, right?
We do. So what for you? I labeled one and I've already forgot it. I should type these out as we go through.
I believe mine was newsletter, and I think I kind of added the one of add the turnkey process to our main page. So newsletter got done. And to be fair, Priscilla did it because I kind of offloaded that task.
Delegation is acceptable.
Yeah, okay.
We never set the rules.
So that one got a check, and I never move that turnkey checklist section to the homepage. So that's something that still has to happen. But I guess I should make these one action item as opposed to. Yeah. It's too easy to have multiple checklists and let it fall. And
I gotta look back and see. I can't remember what. See,
yours was to follow up with all the 4- and 5-star leads from Automate.
And that has been done.
Okay.
I forgot what it was, but it has been done. There's Amanda
Hi,
in the
Amanda,
background.
Milo.
And Milo. We now need to, and here comes Honey.
Whole family.
Yep, here comes a golden retriever.
That's cute.
Yeah,
Hi.
now I need to figure out the timeline by which she's holding the baby.
This is get off the call, Matt. You're 15 minutes over.
Yeah, definitely. We will be done soon. Figuring out what the next ping is kind of, I was trying to lay out what my next challenge is for the week, and that's one of them. Is like, all right, how do I want to do these secondary follow-ups for next week, and finalizing some of these Gantt levelings. And I'm like, all right, definitely follow-ups from Automator. My top priority is making sure that second and third points get made with these people.
Yeah. So is the second and third point of contact, is that your accountability for next week?
I think that's really what I need to be focusing on.
And man, I can talk about the turnkey process, but mine is like, I got to revamp our Indeed listings and, put them everywhere, go and really push on the hiring button. Because like I can be stressed, I can whine about how overworked I am or whatever, but the only way to solve it is going to be to onboard and be right sized. So that's what I
think
got to
that's
do.
actually what we said earlier in the call is you need to have that Indeed posting like in the next 24
Well,
to 48
yeah,
hours.
and I have the other one too, but like I think I just need to revamp them, repost it with a different name, and I'm also on the CNC machinist, gonna just rephrase it to CNC manufacturing engineer, because I realized I just need kind of an adjacent. I need half apps engineer at least, with a CNC background as opposed to the other way around. So
Sounds good.
cool. Well, we can wrap there.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Amanda and Milo and Honey want to go for a walk.
All right, sounds good.
So, thanks, Michael.
All right, thanks, Matt. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Matt and I's conversation this week on the Manufacturing Automation Podcast. If you like the podcast, please share it with a friend or give us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'll be back next week to continue sharing our respective journeys in life, business, and industrial automation. Thanks so much.